Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 franchise mode here in NHL 25. So last episode, if you did not catch it, we simulated more of the season, and so far this team is starting to figure out its game a bit, which is good. We are 34, 24, and 5, which does have us in a playoff spot. Also, as you can see, based on our individual team stats, our offense still has been kind of like middle of the pack, so to speak, but we still have a very good defensive core, as we are 5th in goals against and 10th on the penalty kills. So I'd say we have some pretty good stats all around. Also, I do feel like despite us not being necessarily the best offensive team, we do have decent depth scoring. A main reason why our offense maybe hasn't been super good this year is because Cameron has missed a ton of games. He will be back still in like a month or so, but there has been some guys stepping up this year big time. Guys like Kenny Marcoux, I was not expecting him to have the big year this year, but he is on pace for a career year. Of course, he's only 1 point shy of his best, which was from last season. Much better plus minus and all that, so a couple guys like him. I think even Latty's having a career year almost already. Yeah, almost just has a couple more points to go. He's a plus 25. So a lot of guys are starting to step up, which is really big for this team. Also, I feel like the youth additions of guys like Alto and Lowry have been huge for us offensively. So very impressed with this roster so far, and I'm hoping that obviously once Cameron comes back, that could kind of be like our addition for the season, because I don't feel like this team really needs to make any trades just based on how we've been simulating so far. So likely we are going to be staying pat with the current roster and just seeing how it does in terms of the playoffs again. And obviously if we need to make additions and changes, it will come in the offseason again. But I think this team has been pretty damn good up to this point, and I don't feel like there's a major reason to make any changes. Now, there was no comments in last episode about making any potential trades either, so that's another reason why I don't think making any trades is necessary. Like, we could, if we really wanted to, find a guy that could score a lot of goals and all that stuff for this team, but I feel like it's just not nearly necessary. Like I said, the depth scoring has been very solid. I'm hoping it continues like that in the playoffs, so you can see Marcoux leading the way with 53 points. A lot of guys on 40 points and 30 points as well. And if we sort by like goals, for instance, you can see we have a lot of guys on 10 plus goals. So I feel like the offense has been pretty spread out from our offensive standpoint. And then from a defensive standpoint as well, like guys like Falk have been great. Metropolit's been a very good lockdown D-man. Mackey's having a pretty good season, especially defensively, I would say, which is awesome to see. So Mackey and Metropolit doing some good work. Also, guys like Moss are doing good. Rodriguez has fit in really well on this defensive core. Link has been good, and even Reitz as a depth defenseman has been solid too. And then our goaltending has both been good. Both goalies have had some very solid stats. Obviously, McClement doesn't have a great record, but he does have very good save percentage, just as similar as Vasilevsky, and goals against wise as well. So both goalies have been good, and I think there's not really adjustments that need to be happening. There's guys in the AHL we could turn to if we get into trouble in the playoffs, so I think we're just going to run with this and see what works. Now, I didn't also realize Marcoux is already 3rd in on our team on goals as well, which is insane. So I feel like by the end of the season, we might have like 330 goal scorers, which I think is pretty nice. Obviously, we don't have that one super stud player that scores like 50 goals in a season, but I feel like a good team effort is just as good as having an elite player that basically scores a ton of goals. So hopefully that continues the rest of the season, and hopefully we can find a way to clinch that playoff spot. As of right now, just to double check, because I don't remember where we currently are standings-wise. If we go to, I guess, the Western Conference, the wildcard spots in the Western Conference. Wait, actually, we can't even see who the wildcard spots are on this page. That's kind of weird. Do I have to go to like Northwest Division or something like that? Oh, wait, there is no wild cards yet because it's a throwback. I was going to be like confused for a second. So if we go off points percentage instead, basically in the Western Conference, you can see we are currently in 6th place, which isn't necessarily an ideal spot, but it's better than it should be, I guess. You can see teams like Phoenix, St. Louis, Colorado, and even the Dallas Stars are close to us. Everybody else is below 50% in terms of points percentage, so I think these are really the only teams we need to worry about is Dallas, Colorado, St. Louis. St. Louis and Colorado are both actually in a playoff spot right now, so the one we need to worry about the most would be probably Dallas and Phoenix. Both those two teams have played less games than us, and they have less points than us by not too much. So hopefully when we do play against them, if we do play them more this season, we find ways to win so we could push them back out of the playoff mix. So anyways, with that said, I think we're ready to continue simulating. Like I said, I think once we get Cameron back from injury in a month or so, that will probably be like our deadline addition, so to speak. And hopefully it gets our offense going a little bit once we get to the playoffs and all that. So Let's advance to a day past the trade deadline because, like I said, I just don't think there's a reason to make any moves. Hopefully, we don't have any injuries after the trade deadline because that obviously could hurt things a bit. But I do think we do have some people in the AHL we could call up if we do get into trouble a bit. So let's go past the 2019 trade deadline, I think it is, and see what ends up happening in terms of trades around the league. Hopefully, there's some pretty interesting ones, as we did just beat Calgary 6-5 in overtime, so that's a nice victory. Before the deadline, Patrick Marleau's on waivers. That's an interesting one because we were looking at Marleau a couple of years ago as a free agent. Does have a contract, 2 years at $870K, 78 overalls, not bad as a depth forward. Very solid faceoff stats, still 39 years of age. How has he been in the NHL this year? 5 games played with 1 assist. Also played briefly in the AHL with a point in 1 game. Played in Pittsburgh the year before, 48 points. He's still a pretty solid player, to be honest. But do I want to claim him? I mean, I probably have the cap space. I wish I could go to edit lines from here so I could kind of see if I actually want to claim somebody like him. I feel like it's not a bad idea to claim him, because he's not really that bad on paper. Like, obviously he's only a 78, but he does have, like, still a 3.5-star shot. His offensive awareness is only an 83, but I feel like he's still a decent player. Like, I could claim him and play him in the AHL, and then obviously if we get into any injury concerns down the stretch, he could come up. Or if we want to, we could call him up for the potential playoffs and send somebody down. So, even though he's got 2 years left on his contract, he's actually apparently also a good fit for our bottom 6 and penalty kills, so I think that's not a bad player to claim on waivers. It's also a 2-way contract, so it's not really that bad whatsoever, so I think we're going to claim him, and he could help out right now in Springfield, but there is a chance he might get called up if we need to. So Marleau has joined the team. It said we have invalid lines. Oh, that's why we have to send him down still, right? Oh, man, that's kind of annoying. Actually, that's not a bad idea that we just claimed him, because I forgot we had Jujar Kyra as our only other depth option. So sending down Kyra, we'll do that. And then Patrick Marleau could be a depth forward for us. That's actually a really smart little move there. I didn't even think about Kyra being a depth forward for us right now. So we've upgraded that depth position with a waiver claim of Patrick Marleau. I like it. I like it a lot. Obviously, though, once Cameron returns, we would probably have to send somebody down to the AHL. Obergauer would go for the waiver. Same with Andrew Shaw. Shaw's been actually pretty good this season, so I don't really know who I'm going to send down on waivers once we get Cameron back, but somebody's going to have to get waived, and hopefully they don't get claimed. But I do think, obviously, this nice little addition for the time being of Patrick Marleau is good. Hopefully he could stay with us once we get into the playoffs and all that, because it would be kind of cool if our team won a Stanley Cup, and then also Patrick Marleau was on the team randomly. So anyways, that's that. And let's take a look at the trades that went down at the 2019 deadline. I think that's a solid waiver claim. Upgrading from Jujar Kyra. And actually, let's go back to edit lines here, because I do want to make sure we get Kyra into the lineup in the AHL if there's room, which I think there is. Yeah, technically we could play him where Reese Marcoux is. You know, Marcoux has low lead potential. He's not a forward. Or I could take somebody else like Duke Timmons, who doesn't have any potential. So you know what, let's do that instead. And then we'll get Kyra into the lineup down there in the minors. That's not bad. He actually can play center too, so that's a perfect spot for him. And that's all good and ready to go. And we are ready to take a look at what deals went down at the deadline this year. Hopefully, like I said, there's some interesting ones, because I just really like it when there's like blockbuster trades and stuff that you aren't expecting. So any crazy trades at the 2019 trade deadline? So the first one, the Rangers acquired 2 prospects that are generated for another guy that's generated a 6th and a 7th, so nothing crazy there. Vancouver gets another generated guy from Nashville. Nashville gets back some prospects, or not prospects, picks, and Mark Pysyk. All right. Detroit gets a 3rd, Radko Gudas, and a 4 from San Jose. San Jose gets back a 2nd and a 6th, so Gudas on his way to Detroit. St. Louis acquires a 3rd, a 4th, and 2 others. New York Rangers get back 2 generated guys. A lot of generated guys already getting moved around here in the early going. San Jose gets a 2nd and a 2nd. St. Louis gets back Nathan Horton. That's an interesting one. So the St. Louis Blues adding Nathan Horton to their team, and then San Jose getting some more picks back. Buffalo acquires 2 generated guys from St. Louis. St. Louis gets back a 3rd, a 4th, and Jeff Tambellini. What else we got here? Calgary gets a goalie named Staubitz. a third, and another goalie prospect. So 2 goalie prospects and a third. Pittsburgh will get back a third, and 2 others. Wonder if there was a veteran presence in that trade too, just because of the fact that Pittsburgh's obviously been a really good team this year. Phoenix acquires Jack Hill in a third and a 7th from Calgary. Calgary gets back a third, 4th in Zach Boychuk. All right. Nashville gets a third, 4th in Dylan DeMello from Florida. Florida gets back some generated guy in a third. Boston gets a third, David Savard in a 6th from the New York Islanders. The Islanders get back Dmitry Kulikov in a third. So that's a decent lateral move, I guess, in a way, because Kulikov is younger. So the Islanders get a younger defenseman. They get rid of an older defenseman, I think. Actually, they might be right around the same age, Kulikov and Savard. I can't remember how old each of them are, but that's still an interesting little lateral move for both teams. Doesn't make each of them worse. It just kind of maintains their roster in a sense. Aside from that, Philadelphia acquires Yannick Weber, some generated guy named Binnington, and a 6th from Phoenix. Phoenix gets back 2 generated players. All right. Vancouver gets Quinton Brown, who's generated, and same with Connor Walchuk. A lot of generated guys getting moved, so it's not really anybody I care about too much. But the LA Kings get back Carlo Koliakovo, Dave Bolland, and Pat Maroon. So the LA Kings loading up, it looks like. Tampa Bay acquires our former defenseman Miroslav Zhurdev. So the Islanders do move on from Zhurdev the same year we basically traded him there. So he's been now on 3 teams in a span of a couple months, or more than a couple months, I guess. The Islanders get back a guy named Salcido in Dryden. So we'll have to look at those guys and see what they basically got in return. But kind of interesting that they'd move out from Zhurdev, I feel like. But they did have a lot of young defensive prospects, so maybe that's a way to get guys like Tremblay and Parayko in. I almost said Petrayko for some reason, but Parayko into the lineup. Nashville gets a third, Brian Boyle in a 4th from Dallas. Dallas gets back generated guy in a 3rd, and that's it. So nothing crazy in terms of deadline deals this year, except for our former defenseman Zhurdev on his way to Tampa, which Tampa's a good team, so kind of curious on where he's going to fit in on that Tampa roster. So let's take a look at that for fun, just because I'm curious where he fits into Tampa's picture, because they're a good team this year, and now they just brought in themselves, I guess technically they're going to be using Zhurdev as a depth defenseman, which is very stupid considering they have Mizaros as a depth defenseman and also Shea Theodore. So Tampa's a really good team at the right time, but they should probably be scratching somebody like Chris Weidman or Alex Petrovic instead. But these guys are right-handers, I guess, so maybe that's why they're scratched. But kind of stupid to scratch 3 top 4 defensemen, basically, in my opinion. Aside from that, did the New York Islanders put those guys in a lineup that they traded for? It was Salcido and somebody else. It was these dudes. It was Toby, Salcido, and I don't remember who the other one was. But Salcido's a medium top 6 prospect, so not a terrible return there for the Islanders. He does have some potential. He was a high-up pick. So that's one of the guys they got. Who was the other one that they got? Must be somebody in the AHL. I can't remember who else the other one was. But anyways, that is the trade deadline for 2019. It's good that Tampa's actually a really good team at this point, because it's kind of realistic, obviously, too, in real life. They're currently 2nd place in the Southeast Division because the Caps are a crazy cracked team. So with that said, let's continue to simulate and get through the rest of this regular season and see if our team makes the playoffs. We should be a playoff team, and once Cameron gets back, we should be even better, hopefully. So let's go through 4 games at a time. We got Detroit, Calgary, Anaheim, and Nashville. So this first week, let's see how we do in it. See if we continue to win some games. As Tyler Toffoli has pulled his groin, so that's actually not a great thing, of course. Well, it's not. That's definitely not really a surprise, but having Patrick Marleau as that depth option is kind of nice in this spot now, because he can't play left wing, and I think Toffoli was playing left wing, or was he playing right? No, he was playing right wing, but still, at least this will get a chance for Patrick Marleau to get into our lineup, because I think I'd probably want to play him here over goalie. So let's get Marleau in this spot. It's much better to have Patrick Marleau on the first line over Jujhar Khaira. So for the time being, we'll put Marleau in, but kind of sucks for Toffoli to go down with an injury when we're trying to clinch a playoff spot. We lose to Detroit 4-1. Calgary's a 7-3 loss. Anaheim's a 3-2 shootout win, and Nashville's a 1-0 win. So a little bit of an inconsistent week. 2 tough games, but then 2 solid games. Let's not worry too much. As long as we continue to win at least 50% of our games, we shouldn't be too worried. So let's go through another 3 games. We have Columbus, St. Louis, and Calgary. We do actually have some games against Phoenix coming up still too, and those are probably big games. Columbus is a 3-2 win. St. Louis is a 2-1 win, and Calgary coming up to end off this week is going to be after Toffoli is back in the lineup, which is good. I wonder how Marleau is going to be doing as a depth forward with this team. How is he doing right now? Ooh, 2 points in 6 games. I don't really expect the craziest amount of offense from him, but obviously he was a great offensive player, but he's at the tail end of his career at this point. But anyways, game against Calgary is a 4-3 loss, so not a bad week there. We're on a pretty good little stretch here. We've been playing some good defensive hockey in some of these games too, because technically that's only 2 goals against because it was a shootout loss. I guess actually, wait, no, the shootout winner is considered a goal against, isn't it? I don't even remember how that works, but it might be considered one. Then we won 1-0, so a nice shutout win there. Nice one where we played good defensively there and there as well. So looking good defensively. We are only 4 points back of the Flames with also 2 games in hand, so maybe there's a chance we could still win the Northwest Division this year, just based on this month alone. But let's go through these next 3 games. We have Nashville, Pittsburgh, and Phoenix. See if we could win any of these games. First one against the Nashville Predators as Cameron is back from injury, which is fantastic, but that also means we got to send somebody down on waivers. Cameron is not fully healthy, so I will likely have him scratched until he's fully healthy. But we will have to send somebody down. We did call up Obergauer. I don't think he would get claimed. He's not the highest end prospect in the world. He actually has been pretty solid offensively this year, but he is -7. Which is not great. So I think I'm going to send him down. I don't think he'll get claimed. I could send down Patrick Marleau, but at this point, Obergauer probably doesn't get claimed, I don't think. And yeah, he didn't get claimed. Perfect. Obergauer needs to work on his defensive play a little bit. Like, I know he's a two-way forward, so he should be okay defensively, but so far he's been a bit not great in that area at the NHL level. So we got to move, who was it? Basically, it was McKinnon over to this side. Toffoli was over here. Nelson gets moved to the left side. Lochte goes back to the third line. I couldn't remember exactly how we had our lines before Cameron, because Cameron obviously has been out for quite a while at this point. We'll put Cameron into the spot. Actually, I don't want to put Cameron into the spot right now because he's going to be injured. So let's put goalie in the spot for the time being. And just make sure Cameron's fully healthy. Just trying to remember where Cameron was on the other units and stuff. I think he was also for sure on the first line power play. Oh yeah, I was right. Falk has to go back to the second power play. I think that's how it was. Can't remember exactly, but let's go back here for a second and just make sure Cameron is fully healthy. Is he fully healthy yet? I just wanted to see that notification that he's fully healthy because I don't want to risk him getting re-injured. Let's actually go back here and go to edit lines here. Actually, when is he supposed to be fully healthy? Does it say? April 1st still, it says. So it might be still like a week of him just sitting on the bench, but I think that's important for us to not have him playing, just because if we do have him play, he might be out for the rest of the year, and we kind of need him, I feel like, for the playoffs. So, oh, he's fully healthy a bit early, which is kind of nice. Hopefully that doesn't mean he's going to get re-injured again, but we'll take goalie out and reconfigure our lines a bit, so that way we could get Cameron back on the first power play and all that. But nice to have him back, of course. It's been a bit since he's played, so hopefully he is ready to go. We'll get Falk off the power play on this first unit and put Cameron in the spot, and we will probably move, who do I want on this point spot? Nathan McKinnon? No. I guess Marcoux has been scoring goals this season, but I might want Fata in this kind of spot. So let's go with Fata in this spot, and then we will go to the second power play. Holden's going to come off the power play. Maybe that's why he's had a solid years, because he's been on the power play, but he's going to come out. And we are going to put Justin Falk on this second unit here next to Mackey, and that should be good. Perfect. So team is nice and set up and ready to go for the rest of the season. Hopefully we don't have any more injury trouble. Let's go to AHL here and make sure Obergauer's in the lineup. I don't know who should get scratched for him. I guess technically somebody like Voinov doesn't really need to be in, so we'll get Obergauer in. Like I said, Obergauer's not a hugely crazy prospect anyways, but he's definitely an okay depth forward, but his defensive stats this season, not really ideal. I don't really know how his takeaways and stuff were. Let's see. He gives away the puck more than he takes it away so far. So yeah, he's not really the best two-way forward in the world, but he might still have his chance at the NHL level at some point in time. I just prefer a veteran right now like Patrick Marleau to be in that depth option spot, so We did beat Nashville, lost to Pittsburgh. Let's go through this game against the Yotes, see if we can beat them. And yes, we can. 6-2. Nice convincing victory. We're on 41, 28, and 5. I think we're definitely close to clinching. We are currently tied for first place in the Northwest, so we are probably going to be a playoff team within the next few days, which is good to see. So let's go through another week. We have Columbus, Buffalo, and Minnesota. Let's see if we could win at least 2 of these 3 games and clinch that playoff spot here soon. Columbus, 4-3 victory. Buffalo is a 4-2 loss. Minnesota is a 4-3 shootout win. We have not clinched yet, but if we get one more win, I think we clinch, because the Calgary Flames have clinched a playoff spot, and they're only 2 points up on us with 1 game more played. So looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. And we haven't clinched yet, but we should be soon. I feel like the Flames might end up running away with our division unless we find a way to win every game down the stretch, which I don't know if I really want, because maybe that will mean we get swept in the playoffs. But let's go through 2 games at a time. We got Carolina and Columbus, both home games, before a 3-game road trip to end the season. And I guess we just clinched a playoff spot because we do have our conversation with our head coach about clinching that playoff spot. So likely we just won that game, I would assume, or got a point at least. Yep, we beat Carolina, and Columbus is also a win, so nicely done, boys. A couple more games left to go, though. Dallas, who's actually pretty good. They're similar to us in the standings. Detroit, who's below 500, not going to make the playoffs probably. And in St. Louis, I don't know where they are. Let's see. They are not in a playoff spot, and it looks like they're probably not going to make it unless they bump the Avs out of a playoff spot, I think. 2, 4... Yeah, they might be able to bump the Avs out of a playoff spot potentially, so we'll see what ends up happening with that. But let's go through this game against Detroit and Dallas as well, actually, for that matter. Dallas is a 3-1 win. Nice little victory there. Detroit is a 3-2 loss. And this last game of the season against the Blues, have they missed the playoffs officially? Kind of curious on that. 88 points. Avs are on 90. I think if the Blues win this game against us, they make it over the Avs. So we might want St. Louis to beat us here, which is kind of weird because the Avs are a really good team, as we saw last year. So I might want St. Louis to win this game. I might, just based on that. I don't know how good St. Louis is, though. St. Louis has, I think, like Shea Weber and stuff, so they might actually be a really good team, too. So I don't know who I would rather in the playoffs of those 2 teams, but let's go through the St. Louis game and finish the season. We win 3-1, so we have decided, I guess, that Colorado clinched that playoff spot because we beat the Blues. So we're the reason for St. Louis not making the playoffs, which means my Discord emoji Dave is probably sad. But it looks like Patrick Marleau is losing morale due to ice time, which is kind of strange because he's listed as a dev forward, but we'll come to that once we get to the playoffs and all that. But let's take a look at some stats here, see how good this team did. So first and foremost, we got to hide everything, close my eyes, get it to the standings, so we can kind of do a nice little breakdown without spoiling stuff for us. All right, so we finished actually tied for first in our division, but we did not win our division. The main reason why is because of the regulation wins. We had 34 to Calgary's 35. That's the only difference, because we both had the exact same points percentage. We had 2 more regulation wins. Or no, not 2 more regulation wins. 2 more wins in general, but they had 1 more regulation win. So we had a couple extra frame wins, I guess, that made us in second place rather than first, but that's okay. In terms of the entire league, we finished as not even a top 10 team. No, we did finish as a top 10 team. We finished 9th, but the Eastern Conference and some of the Western Conference teams in the other division, very strong. So not necessarily the craziest season compared to some of these other teams. Like the best team in the league was Washington with 62 wins, but still we had, I'd say, a pretty good season, and we could still definitely simulate good come playoff time depending who we run into. In terms of goals for per game, offense was kind of mid-table still, so not terrible, not great, but I'll still take it. Goals against per game, we are tied for the 3rd best defensive team with the best team in the league, the Washington Capitals, so I like that a lot. It's kind of crazy. We are technically the worst team in terms of points almost, but we are one of the best defensive teams in this top 5 or so. Columbus is very good defensively too for a lower seeded team. Terms of power play percentage, how is our power play this year? Outside the top 10? Yeah, mid-table again as well. Okay. So offense could probably use some work, but at least, like I said, our depth scoring is good. From a penalty kill perspective, 84.7. Our penalty kill dropped off a little bit, but it's still good, tied with a lot of teams like LA, for instance. So I think penalty kills is good. Defensive play is good, obviously. Power play and stuff like that might need some work, but maybe it'll figure itself out. Now, what's interesting about this season, 8 short-handed goals is pretty damn good, of course. But what I just saw is something I was not expecting. We actually had a below 500 record on home ice. 19-21-1, despite this good of a season. We were a killer road team, though, 28-9-4. So, hopefully the team figures out how to win on home ice in the playoffs, considering we have probably home ice advantage for the most part. 7-3 in our last 10 games going into the postseason as well. All right. So pretty damn good. Let's take a look at some stats here. Who led us in points? Marcoux led us in points at the end of the season, and he didn't really pick up much points after that trade deadline. So I feel like the offense kind of slowed down quite a bit in the last little bit. But let's once again hide some stuff, and we will go by each position and make it more of a surprise for ourselves, just because it's kind of more fun that way. So in terms of our centers for points, yeah, as we saw, Marcoux, 68 points, plus 19. Very good season from Marcoux. And was not really expecting him to be this good this season in terms of offense. Like, when we gave him his contract extension, I considered him more of a career third-line guy. But he seems to live up to top 6 potential easily. So the fact he's generated enough growth up to an 88 is awesome. And I'm really glad we have him locked up. I think he's definitely one of my favorite players in the series, up there with Cameron and McKinnon and stuff like that. But a very good year for him. 12 power play points, 1 short-handed goal, 4 short-handed points as well. Good face-off numbers. Takeaway numbers a little bit low, but still good season from Kenny. Then we also have Nathan McKinnon on 67 points. I kind of expect more out of a high franchise player like Nathan McKinnon, but this is definitely a really big down year from him. 92 points down to 67, but also he was kind of more utilized as a winger, and he wasn't playing next to Toffoli, but still I would say a good year for him, but he definitely was quieter than anticipated. I just hope that he could do well for us in the playoffs. Aside from that, Brock Nelson on 55 points, plus 20. Good year again from Brock Nelson. Lowry had a really good rookie season. And like I was mentioning in the last episode, wasn't really expecting that because he is listed as only a depth forward only at this point. But his shooting's literally a 2.5 star, yet he had a 21 goal season. His offensive awareness is only a 78, but he had 41 points. But he does have very good passing stats, so I guess those puck skills kind of helped him a bit. But good season for him in his rookie year. Cameron had 35 points in 44 games, so he missed a ton of games due to injury, almost 40 games to be exact, 38. But he was very good on the season with those 35 points when he was playing. He was probably on pace for less points than last year as well, but I would still say a good year for him. Just hopefully he could find a way to stay more healthy going forward. Jenner, 25 points, good season from him. Goalie only got to play 1 game this year as a depth forward. Maybe we'll get him more in the playoffs if somebody's not playing good defensively. Left wing side of things, Alto had a 50-point rookie year, so maybe there's a chance Yerky Alto could be a Calder favorite. Very solid rookie year. He's up to an 82 overall, and he's just starting his ELC, which is awesome. So really liking Alto, and I'm very excited for the future with him involved as well. 47 points from Latte is pretty solid, so he's starting to get a little bit better as well. Plus 22 is awesome. Holden on 36 points, 17 goals. A couple of those points were on the power play, but I'd say a decent year for Dale Holden. Marleau only played a couple games with us. Yeah, only 6 games, had 2 points. We might get him in the playoffs depending if somebody's underperforming or not. Like if Holden doesn't do well, Marleau could come in. Right wing side of things, Fada on 58 points, 22 goals. Not a bad year from Fada. He does have his extension kicking in next season. A little bit of a down year compared to last year in terms of goal scoring, but he definitely figured out his offense a bit down the stretch, I think, because he wasn't off to the best of starts early in the year. Toffoli on 52 points in 76 games. Good year for Toffoli. I think he's a pending free agent. So that's an interesting one if we've decided to bring him back or not. And then Andrew Shaw, surprisingly for only a 78, 19 points plus 5 is kind of nice. So Andrew Shaw did a really good job. Defensively, we had Falk on 42 points. Good year offensively for Falk. Mackey finished with 26 points and a plus 26. So I'd say a very big year for Mackey. Hopefully he gets some growth. If he doesn't, he might cap out as like an 80-82 and a low lead. Metropolitan 23 points plus 27. Great year defensively for him, and also offensively, I should say, too, considering he's a DFD. Moss 18 points, 8 goals. Moss continues to be a good goal scorer from the back end. Rodriguez 12 points. Halinka 12 points as well, and only 1 point for Reitz. Goaltending wise, we have Vasilevsky on a .910 save percentage and a 2.6 goals against average, 42-23. Really good year for Vasi, and then he was also healthy all year too, I think. McClement, despite the losing record of 5-11-2, he also posted very good numbers, a .911 save percentage and a 2.67 goals against average. So both goalies did relatively the same, and then no assists for either of them. So I think that was a very solid season. Very solid season. Like, I know we didn't necessarily finish as one of the top teams, but I like our depth scoring. I don't like that we don't have a high-end scorer, kind of in a way, but I like our depth scoring. And then also goaltending was very much on point. Like, you can see we had a 130 goal scorer. We had 520 goal scorers. We had some guys very close to being a 20 goal scorer, and a bunch of guys above 10. So, like, Cameron was our lowest scoring forward as a goal scorer, but he also missed half the year pretty much. So that's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. All right, let's take a look at some stats around the league for the NHL just to see who led in the points. I think it's probably Ovechkin again. Yeah, it is. Ovi and Backstrom are tearing it up in this franchise mode. 132 points for Ovi, 74 goals. Backstrom on 35 goals, 90 assists, 125 points. Nikita Kucherov is starting to become Nikita Kucherov. 116 points for him as a New York Ranger. Only has a couple years left before he's a pending UFA, so I wonder if they're going to re-sign him long-term, but former Calder winner and Cup winner already at this point. Semin on 113 points, also good in Washington, still 35 years old at this point. God damn. Will Alex Semin retire soon is the question, because he's still playing with Backstrom and Ovi. Those guys have been together this entire franchise mode. Daniel Sedin up there with 112 points for the Calgary Flames. Crosby with 104. A couple other 100-point guys, Malkin and Bergfors. Kind of funny seeing Nick Bergfors there and then Philip Forsberg, because obviously you could spell Bergfors and Forsberg either way. It's just kind of funny. Most goals this season is definitely Ovi. Daniel Sedin finished second in goals. You had a couple other 50-goal scorers like Stamkos, Crosby, Forsberg, and Vinny Lecavalier. That's interesting. In terms of defensemen, the best defenseman this season is PK Subban, 63 points. But likely the Norris is going to go to Justin Schultz because of the plus-minus, which is an interesting one because I don't think people anticipated Justin Schultz ever winning a Norris. I know he had a lot of hype around him when he joined like the Edmonton Oilers, but that's kind of surprising. Good stuff from him, but that's obviously in our division because that's the Calgary Flames. Letang had 58 points, so his jersey number, which is funny. Carlson with 58. The other Carlson with 58 as well, but minus 27. So Ice in my Discord's going to like that because he just thinks Erik Karlsson is overrated defensively in real life. And maybe at times, but other times he was actually better than you would think coming back and getting that puck away. Drew Doughty, 55 points. A lot of 50-point D-man this year. All right. In terms of goalies, most wins this season is Linus Ullmark in Tampa Bay. Holtby up there. Vasi up there for us. Love to see that. But it looks like it's going to be Ullmark's Vezina this year. 8 shutouts from as well. God damn. And save percentage, yep. Linus Ullmark going to win a Vezina in 2019. In real life, what year was it that he won? Like 2022? I can't remember. But good to see him actually simulate like a good goalie on a good team. And the crazy thing is he was an RFA at the beginning of last offseason. So I wonder if Tampa's going to have a tough time re-signing him or what. Because he's definitely going to want more money this offseason. And who knows if they have that money to spend or not. But Ullmark's a fantastic goalie in this franchise mode so far. I'm surprised he actually developed good enough too. Because I was thinking when I made him that he wasn't going to become that good. But so far he has definitely become like the Linus Ullmark that he is in real life at times. In terms of goalie goals, no goalie goals, but most assists. 5 assists from our former goalie, Devin Dubnyk. All right. Best rookie of the season is also a Calder winner. No, he is not, but will he get it because his plus minus is much better? That's an interesting question. Because 50 points, he only had 4 less points than Mackey, his fellow Finn. But the plus minus is definitely much better on Alto. But is that enough to get it over somebody who had 4 more points? I don't know. But these two guys definitely probably played together on like a Finnish team or something like that. So we could say that for a storyline or something like that. But then there's also Holden Lucic on 46 points, but minus 37. So oof, Minnesota. Lowry finished top 5 also in rookie points. So I think it was a very good year for rookies on our team. But I'm hoping Alto could win the Calder this year. I'm really hoping so. So there is that. So obviously we've been a playoff team. The question I have is, who are we playing? If we're looking based off the old way, let's take a look at the standings here again. I guess technically since we finished 4th, we'd be playing the LA Kings again. But it could be different considering they won their division. I don't really know. It might be LA, but it could be a different team. Kind of hoping it's a different team because we've played LA already a good chunk in this franchise mode. So the answer to that will be the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah, I did reseed. I thought so. Because if we go back to those standings, you can see, and once we go back to the Western Conference, since LA technically won their division, actually, wait a second. Chicago has home ice advantage. All right, so yeah, the top 3 teams that won their division, probably like Nashville. Actually, no, Chicago would have finished below us, then technically. No, they wouldn't have finished below us. Technically, it would be Nashville, LA, and who's the other divisional winner? Or is that it? Did one of the divisions not have a team make the playoffs? Actually, no, it would be Nashville, Calgary. There you go. Yeah, Nashville, Calgary, and LA would be the top 3 teams. Then it would be Chicago, us, Columbus, Dallas, Colorado, I think. I honestly don't know, but I think it reseeded. Because Chicago has home ice advantage, right? Yeah. Interesting. Chicago is definitely a team I don't really want to face at this point. Obviously, they're not as good as they used to be, but I am kind of curious on what their roster's looking like at this point. So, should be an interesting matchup. Apparently, they are 3-6-1 in their last 10 games going into the playoffs, but they finished 49-29-4. And as you can see the comparison here, they were a better offensive team, but they were 10th in goals for. They were a good defensive team too, just like us. 8th in the league. We were 3rd. And then you look at power play percentage, they were 7th. So yeah, they definitely have the offensive punch and also good defensive play. Meanwhile, us, we're kind of more of a good defensive team, but they are definitely the better offensive one. So kind of curious on this matchup, but let's advance today so we get it right to the first matchup. And let's take a look at what Chicago's looking like, and then we'll take a look at their player stats as well, so we can kind of see how they did during the season too. But I know that Kane's probably still there. Jonathan Toews would still be there, but I'm trying to think if they still have like guys like Dustin Byfuglien. I don't think I've seen Byfuglien leave teams Chicago yet, so I feel like Byfuglien's still there. Patrick Sharp might be still there if he's not retired. Trying to think of who else would be maybe there. There's probably a lot of good players. I know Hossa is retired, so I don't think Hossa would be there anymore, but it should still have a lot of good players. And the answer to that is yes. This is a pretty damn good team. Andrew Ladd has jumped to a 90 overall. That's crazy. All right. So Ladd, Toews, and Kane, absolutely filthy top line. And that's definitely something we're going to have to find a way to contain. We're a good defensive team during the season, so we probably can contain it. But at the same time, do we have the offense to battle with that top line? Second line, Dustin Byfuglien's there at 34 with Nathan Gerbe. Gerbe as a second line center is a little bit interesting. And then Jaden Schwartz is also there as well. So that top 6 is quite nice. Obviously, Schwartz and Gerbe are kind of more like third line. Actually, no, they're probably second liners, but they're lower end than all these other dudes for sure. They don't have any X factors. Third line, Pavel Buchnevich with Mark Letestu and Lori Korpikoski. So solid third line, defensive third line with these two. Buchnevich is maybe a little bit more offensive, but he hasn't gotten much of a chance because he's behind Ladd and Schwartz. Fourth line, Yori Laterra, and then also Dustin Boyd, and a guy named Evan Mason, who's generated. Yeah, that's a good offensive core. No real weakness, good depth down the middle, good depth on the wing. Maybe a bit weak having Gerbe as a second line center. Maybe he got statistical growth, but kind of fun to go up against a 5'5" player. From a defensive standpoint, they have Duncan Keith still, who's 35 years old now, and Brent Seabrook. So they are getting a little bit older on the defensive side of things. So guys like Duncan Keith are already on drop-off, which is interesting. Second pairing has Andrew McDonald and Zbigniew McCulloch, and a top 6 pairing of Robert Bertuzzo and Joni Pekkanen. So defense obviously not as good as it used to be at one point, but it is still a good enough defensive core where it could simulate good. From a goaltending perspective, they have a guy named Igor Chistov who's 27 years old, and Corey Crawford is still there, but he's kind of running, and it's a tandem with Chistov, which is interesting. From a scratch perspective, they have Johnny Oduya and Colin Fraser. So Colin Fraser is still kicking on Chicago, which is kind of surprising, and then Johnny Oduya being a healthy scratch is an interesting one. All right. Yeah, that's a good team. I'm kind of curious on how their offense is basically, like who's producing on the bottom 6 or bottom 9 for that matter even. Like I'd assume obviously that first line's simulating really good, but aside from that, I wonder how Gerby simulates and Schwartz does. So let's take a look at some stats and see who we need to watch out for in this first round matchup. But it's definitely going to be a tough matchup, I think, but obviously I think it could be decently even if we find our offensive game, that is. So let's take a look at what they got for player stats. So in terms of their centers, Taze is on 98 points this year. So yeah, Jonathan Taze obviously simulates really good. Mason had only 27, so there is a pretty drastic drop-off in center stats. I expected maybe a bit more. Actually, wait, Gerby technically is a center, so maybe Gerby is on like 40-plus points, but definitely they might be more top 6 heavy than anything. But Mason had 27 points this year. Letestu 27. Leterre 21. I mean, some of these guys I didn't expect to pick up a lot of points. Letestu having 27 is actually better than anticipated. And Fraser played 13 games, had 5 points. From a left wing perspective, Ladd had 76 points this year. So a good year for Ladd, of course, on that top line. Schwartz on 61. But it looks like that second line does give up some goals against because their plus-minus isn't great. But Nathan Gerby, 54 points as a second-line center. I mean, he doesn't have the best face-off ratings, so maybe we could find ways to win face-offs on that second line and take advantage of that. So maybe that's not a bad thing. So shout out to Nathan Gerby anyways. Buchnevich, 39 points as a third-liner. Korpikoski, 25 points. Right wing-wise, Kane on 99 points, and Bufflin had 49. Goddamn. So obviously from a forward perspective, we got to watch out for Kane, Taze, Ladd, Schwartz, I guess technically Gerby and Bufflin, but I would say for the most part, they're very reliant on Taze and Kane. So if we could shut them down, we should be able to win games. From a defensive standpoint, Pekkanen had 30 points, which is pretty good considering he was playing top 6 with power play time, I guess. Duncan Keith is definitely dropping off since his good days. 29 points this year. A couple of years back, actually quite a few years back, 73 points. So he has definitely slowed down a bit, but he is still a good top 4 defenseman. McDonald had 28, Zbigniew McCulloch 20, Seabrook had 15, and Bortuzzo 9. All 6 of their defensemen played every game, so they didn't have to play Johnny Oduya at all this season. And then from a goalie perspective, Crawford had a 909 in 46 games. Chistov had a 907 in 40 games. So our goalies were better in save percentage and in goals against. But they were, I think, actually, no, yeah, they were a worse defensive team than us, but not by much. I wonder who they're going to start in the playoffs. It seems like it would be Chistov, but it could be Corey Crawford as well. So, have they won a cup in this universe? They have, okay. So they won a cup 5 years ago, so 2014. I think that was when they won a cup. All right. Yeah, I think we definitely have a chance, but obviously containing Kane and stuff like that's going to be tough. Kane's making a lot of money right now. He's probably one of the highest paid players in the league, and then obviously Jonathan Taze probably right there with him. Yeah, Taze is actually on a decent contract, I would say. 9.7 is pretty good, but $11 million for Kane may be worth it, but he's not picking up 100 points this year. Was in the past, though. I guess this is his first season without 100 points. So, yeah, he's actually definitely worth that money. Over 1,000 points in 818 games. That's crazy. 80 points in 80 playoff games. In the year that they won the cup, he had 26 points. So, got to watch out for Kane and Taze for sure. So, if we could contain them, I definitely think we have a chance. Otherwise, we're going to need to find some offense from some unsung heroes on a roster in order to probably win. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to the first round of playoffs against the Chicago Blackhawks as we look to hopefully have a better run than last year, and hopefully we can find ourselves maybe at least in the conference finals or a cup finals. Like I said, our road record was really good this season. Our home record, not so much. We are starting out on the road this playoff run, so maybe by going up against these higher seeded teams earlier on, we can win earlier on and get ourselves further and find ways to win these series against these type of tough teams like Chicago. So let me know down below, and I'll see you guys next time.